Stop it. What are you doing? I don't care. Just hold her tight and kiss her. I kissed harder, and then slowly I raised my hand to her breasts, feeling it rising so much that my lips still hadn't left hers. She pulled my hand away with the last bit of reason she had left, reached behind me and unbuttoned her small shirt. You pushed me away. You went too far. Stop now. Welcome to the channel, Secret Love Tales. If you love attractive and emotional love stories, please come to our channel. Here, we will bring you stories full of surprises, touching and engaging. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any interesting stories. In today's video, we would like to present to you a story called The Maid, narrated by Jane. Please watch along. On Saturday afternoon, it was pouring rain. The rain was so dark that it was almost impossible to see, and it usually rained in the afternoon at this time of year. Every time it rained, the water was pouring down, and there was thunder and lightning, followed by gusts of wind. On the weather forecast, people often reported that these were very unusual rains. The first rains of the season often made the weather worse and more dangerous. The heavy rain was like a little water pouring down on the road, making people feel like they were drowning in a storm. The night also fell faster because of that. The rain was accompanied by thunder and lightning and strong gusts of wind, causing a widespread power outage. At this time, the alley was dark and flooded. Everything became wet and muddy. My maid lit a candle, served me dinner, then put on her raincoat and prepared to leave. Looking at her like that, I felt so sorry for her. A woman in the rain at night. The candle tells you to be careful on the road. It's very dangerous in this heavy rain. Why don't you wait a bit to see if it stops before going? It's safer, I suggested. But she must be impatient. Every afternoon she rushes home early. At home she has a child who is less than a year old waiting for her. Her husband died in an accident. Now she is a widow raising her child alone. Every time she goes to work, she has to leave her child at her mother's house from early morning to evening. She just wants to finish work quickly so she can go home to her child. I brought the oil lamp to the table and sat down to eat. Less than 10 minutes later, I heard a knock on the door. "Who is it?" Not recognizing my voice, she opened the door and saw her return, wet from head to toe, shivering. Her bike's front wheel was bent. "What's wrong?" she said. The water in the dark alley made me unable to see the road. I fell right into a manhole. The bike broke. My body was torn to shreds. One shoulder was exposed. Luckily, if I had been swept down the drain, I wouldn't have known where to go. She quickly went to the back room to change her shirt, but the torn shirt was stuck to my skin. My arms and shoulders were in excruciating pain, making it impossible for her to take off her shirt. Finally, she spoke cautiously. "Hey, can you help me? It hurts so much I can't take it off." I couldn't refuse. How could I refuse when she was injured like that? I took the candle and walked into the room. The room was connected to the kitchen where I was eating. The flickering light of the candle was enough to see. But in my mind, I kept telling myself that men and women should not be close to each other in the dark. What I feared most was that she was a virtuous woman with a husband and children. She was also not lucky. So as a man, I could not take advantage of the weakness or disadvantaged situation of others to flirt or seek benefits for myself. Therefore, the first decided to bring the candle in to make the room brighter and more transparent. But then I realized this was a fatal mistake. The light of the candle allowed me to clearly see everything exposed under the thin layer of fabric clinging to her body. The soft lines of her body were clearly visible, making me more confused and embarrassed than ever. Since her husband passed away more than a month ago, she applied for a job as a maid, and she has been working for me for more than 6 months. But this is the first time I discovered that she is so beautiful. I was as dumb as a drunk person, as if struck by lightning. I pulled her wet shirt down halfway and stopped, deliberately letting my hand rest on that soft and round shoulder. It was only when my breath blew on her ear that I suddenly realized that I was caressing her skin. She recoiled in panic and turned back. "Hey, what are you doing?" This time, the one who made the mistake was her. She was just standing there and not willing to turn around, because when she turned around, her full bust was exposed before my eyes. Her white shirt with red and blue embroidered flowers stuck to her body, revealing her firm breasts. They were really a good fit, not too bulky like those of breastfeeding women, but round and beautiful. I kept looking at that place without blinking, looking at it forever. It was like an invitation, like it was provoking people. I reached my hand over to touch it. I started to push her and pressed her against the wall, my hands roaming over her. Sister, I really didn't expect you to be so beautiful. No, this is not allowed. She struggled, forcing me to use all my strength as a boy to hold her tight. Now she didn't need to ask me to speak up. I quickly and boldly took off that layer of clothing. I tore the shirt open again. Then I pushed the shoulder pole up. Then everything jumped out. She shouted loudly, "Hey, don't, you." No, I don't agree. But then when I let go of my hand to bend down, I began to caress. I loved. I smelled her fragrance. It was truly enchanting. She suddenly used all her remaining strength to push me away and run away. I quickly reached out to grabbed a piece of cloth. It flattened, and a piece of cloth fell to the ground and was torn. She was now fluttering like that, running away. On her body now there was only a pair of shoulder poles, but one side had also slipped off. It could not cover all the other places. She just ran out into the street, hugging me, but I did not chase after her, because I knew she would realize that. She quickly covered herself with her hands and ran out of the living room, looking very shaky. When she was only a few steps away from the door, she suddenly stopped. What's going on now? Maybe she understood. She wasn't exhausted or didn't want to run anymore, but because she had nothing on her now, running out into the street like this, it might be more dangerous than staying here. She stood still in the dark, her back turned to me, and sobbed. I quietly walked over and hugged her from behind. Her body was shaking violently. She didn't say anything. I reached forward again, removed her hands, and gently loved them. She let out a groan, then sobbed again, but didn't react anymore, letting me do whatever I wanted. The place of her that was loved became even more alluring. I felt like I couldn't take it anymore, about to explode. She didn't react at all now, just let me do whatever I wanted. Maybe she had started to accept it. Not hearing any reaction from her, I started to do it. I grabbed her shoulders and turned her around a bit. The yellow light shone on, making her entire face visible. Her face was still a bit panicked. Her tear-filled eyes opened wide, looking at me. Her lips kept trembling as if she wanted to say something but didn't dare to say it. I always thought she was an average-looking person. Not ugly, but very gentle and kind. Actually, she wasn't beautiful either. But now I discovered that in this world, perhaps no one was more beautiful than her. I began to be infatuated, bent down to kiss her trembling lips. She was silent again, looked up, and offered her lips to me. As soon as our lips touched, I saw that she seemed to be using herself. She let out a few sounds and opened her mouth to let me scan her body further. Now, trapped in my arms, she was limp as if she had no strength left. I began to be infatuated, passionately enjoying the passionate flavor that people often say a woman with one child. I became more and more violent, more and more greedy. She begged and whined, "Hey baby, please, be gentle. I have a lot of milk, it hurts a lot." "Oh, so now I understand, so that's what it is, so now, what should I do now?" "Oh, now I understand. It turns out that every afternoon she was in a hurry to go home like that because it was so full of milk inside. It made her uncomfortable, so she had to go home so that the other boy could eat it. This explained why this place of hers was so round and round, so cute, so adorable. I pressed her down again and lifted it up and whispered, "Then let Lamb help Ella." Then regardless of whether she agreed or not, I only saw a little bit of resistance, but it was a bit weak. Ignore the big boy in front of me, he was enjoying the sweet milk. At first, she reacted a little, then gradually she reached out and hugged his head. He suddenly discovered that women's milk was 10,000 times more delicious than cow's milk. Now it seemed like she was starting to crave it. She no longer tried to stop him, but instead wanted to cooperate with him. She seemed weak and limp in his arms. When I let her go, milk splashed all over my face. It probably took 10 minutes to finish both bottles. It was amazing. My little boy would probably eat faster because he only had one thing to do. He focused on one thing. As for me, it took me a long time to swallow, and every now and then I would jump to this side and then to that side, and the main purpose was to tease him. So the task of finishing his milk was delayed. I did all the necessary moves to send a woman to cloud 9. So after I finished 2 bottles of milk, she was so happy that she almost fainted in my arms. She buried her face in my arms and cried again, her hands trembling as she covered something. I didn't need to ask how she was feeling. Lynn, oh my God, I can't stand it. Now she's calling me M again. I pulled her into the bedroom and pushed her down on the bed. She was half sitting, half lying like that. I hurriedly threw away the tiny pieces of cloth that were left, and now she had nothing on her body. Even though there was no electricity in the room, it was pitch black, but I could still tell where something was without a single mistake in the darkness. I could feel the softness. It was as warm as velvet. It really had a warmth that made people want to bury themselves in it forever and not want to come out. Her husband had been gone for more than a year. Perhaps it had also been more than a year since she had enjoyed that feeling. So now it came very quickly, and that repression exploded violently. Look at her. Sweat was pouring out. Her hair was messy, and there were spots here and there, looking so seductive. It was a rainy night. The power was out. In this small room, the door was locked outside. Something really cute was happening in this bedroom. I thought I was lost in paradise. Unable to bear it anymore, I stood up straight and started to hustle on my body. I released very quickly. I was like a bull that found a soft embankment and kept thrusting into it. Now my sister kept making small sounds. I didn't know what they were, crying or screaming or satisfied. Suddenly, I had a feeling of regret. If it was like this, I wouldn't have wasted the past few months to enjoy it now. I felt so regretful, so now I have to make up for it. My sister hasn't had anything for more than a year, so it's been pent up. Now she's like a powder keg, just needing a very small spark. Perhaps for me, I only used a little force, which was not too much. Just a few minutes and she had already exploded. Luckily, it was raining heavily at the time, so the neighbors couldn't hear her. Every time it exploded, she would scream. Otherwise, it would be too embarrassing. It was a rainy night that I will remember for the rest of my life. I quietly looked at her face again. It was really beautiful. Now I felt it was too beautiful. Her face without makeup was closed. Her eyes were very gentle. Her breath was as fragrant as an orchid. Her eyelashes were soft and curved. Her cheeks were a little rosy. If God created a kind of love like this, it means men will have bad luck. I knew that. In the coming months, I would have to work hard, work day and night, not knowing how to restore these quintessence. If she didn't have a child, I definitely wouldn't have let her go home tonight. I lay there, lying on the bed, my eyes, my nose, my mouth still lingering with the fragrance. My fingertips still had the feeling of touching a certain place. It was still burning with the feelings when it exploded. All the time I kept thinking about it, thinking about that woman. I just let myself let myself crave like that. And from that day on, I lost my maid. The day we were together was Saturday morning. The next day was Sunday. She was no longer my maid, but my nanny. She took care of my food, took care of my sleep, and even took care of my growing up. This was a nanny in the literal sense, not a figurative one at all. And from then on, Monday was like Tuesday, Tuesday was like Wednesday, Wednesday was like Thursday. Every day was like that. Except for the time I went to work. All the rest of the time I was with her, working hard like that all night long, like the ancient kings who people said were insatiable. Because I was in the prime of my life, and she was a person in the prime of her youth. Only God could stop her. Then one day, Ella told me, I'm pregnant. What? Pregnant? Yes. Suddenly, I turned pale, feeling a bit worried. She comforted me. What are you worried about? I'm going to have a lot of milk for you soon. Don't you like it? I sat there, stunned by Ella's words, my mind reeling. How could getting pregnant be that simple? A thought flashed through my mind. If this got out, my life would be turned upside down. Are you sure? I asked in a trembling voice, my eyes searching Ella's. Ella nodded, her eyes gentle but with a hint of mischief. Don't worry. I'll keep it a secret and no one will know. This child will be a secret between you and me. I let out a sigh, but my heart was still in turmoil. No one knew the secret, but this child was not a shadow. One day it would grow up. One day someone would notice. But Ella, we can't go on like this forever. Have you thought it through? I tried to calm down. Ella didn't answer right away. She stepped forward, leaned down close to my face and whispered, I've thought it through. I want this child and I want you forever. Ella's words were like a small spark that fell and burned in my head, a feeling of both fear and attraction. But when I was about to open my mouth to say something, the door suddenly opened. Clang! The door slammed against the wall, making both of us jump. Standing in the doorway was Rose, my neighbor and my sister's best friend. Her eyes swept over us and stopped on Ella. Her flat stomach was still not exposed, but her red face and mysterious eyes were enough to say a lot. Mr. Lamb, I came to help deliver something. But what is this? Rose's voice was as cold as ice. I was speechless. Ella, on the other hand, remained frighteningly calm. She just smiled slightly. Hello, Rose. Is there anything I can help you with? Sister Rose looked at us for a long time, her eyes filled with suspicion and disappointment. I don't know what's going on here, but Mr. Lamb, I hope you know what you're doing. After saying that, Sister Rose turned and walked away, but not forgetting to slam the door behind her. As soon as the door slammed shut, Ella walked over to me, placed her hand lightly on my shoulder, and said reassuringly, Don't worry, she can't do anything. Only you and I can decide what happens between us. But I didn't feel at ease. The storm inside me was still raging. Rose was nosy and close to many people in the neighborhood. If this got out, I would no longer have a place in this neighborhood. Ella, I think we need some time to think. You're pregnant. You need to think about yourself and the baby, I said, trying to stay calm. Ella was silent. Her eyes became gloomy. What do you mean? You want to stop? Want to abandon me? No, I interrupted, but the hesitation in my voice said it all. I just want you to have time to think it over. This child will change everything, you understand? Ella smiled faintly, her smile mixed with bitterness. You're afraid that others will find out, right? You're afraid of losing your reputation, afraid of your life being turned upside down. But what about me? Do you think about me? I've given up everything to have you, and now you want to back down? I bowed my head, speechless, the battle raging inside me. Ella was right, but so was the fear. I wasn't ready to face the price. I need time, and maybe you do too, Ella finally said, her voice weary. I won't force you, but if you're not sure about us, don't try to hold on. Ella stood up, her eyes flashing with determination. She picked up her bag and walked out the door, not forgetting to turn back and say, If you truly love me, you will find me. But if not, don't even try. I will raise the child on my own. The door closed. I sat alone in the dark room, the rain still falling outside. My mind was filled with unanswered questions. Would I have the courage to hold on to Ella, or would I let her go and let her walk out of my life forever? Ella left with her unborn child and an unfinished story. I sat there facing my fears and responsibilities, wondering if I could overcome them to pursue true happiness. And maybe the answer will never come until I actually take action. Maybe the answer is not needed right now, because sometimes life gives us no choice but to keep going, no matter how dark or thorny the road ahead is. Ladies and gentlemen, our story today will stop here. Thank you for taking the time to watch the entire video. Hopefully, the details and emotions in the story have brought you interesting and meaningful moments. If you like this video, don't forget to like, share, and leave a comment below the video to let us know your opinion. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any stories in the future. Each of your subscriptions and likes will motivate Jane and the program's production team to create more interesting videos. And now, see you in the next videos. Wish you a wonderful day.